Greetings, everyone. I'm Kavita Prabhakar, Deloitte's Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Many of my friends and colleagues refer to me as KP. I'm very excited to be here today to share with you Deloitte's journey on the topic of identity transformation. Personal identity is so important to us as humans. It is the way an individual thinks about themselves, the way they are viewed by the world, and the diverse characteristics that define them. Better understanding identity and the concept of identity and how it drives equitable outcomes is something we're very, very passionate about at Deloitte. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in India, came to the US at the age of 17 to pursue an education, an immigrant. Today, I'm a US citizen, an American, and a very proud member of our AAPI community. I am a mom, a wife. I absolutely see myself as a woman in technology. And I will tell you all of this and my lived experiences come to work every day. With me today is my dear friend and colleague, Amy Smith, the leader of our Deloitte diversity and equity efforts, and she and I work together every day. Amy wears many, many hats, but one of her key roles is leading Deloitte's DEI data strategy, including our efforts around identity data. Amy, on to you.
Thanks, KP, and hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here today, and I look forward to connecting on this topic. By way of introduction, my pronouns are she, her. I am also a woman, a working mother. I'm a technologist. I am a staunch advocate for mental health, and I identify as a proud member of our People with Disabilities community at Deloitte.
Thank you, Amy. Before we launch into our details about the approach to identity, I'll share some general broad context with regard to Deloitte's approach to DEI. Simply put, our strategy at Deloitte is focused on driving equitable outcomes. Equity is, as a topic, as a concept, is new to the equation. And it's been all about meeting people where they are. A critical element to activating equity at Deloitte is through better understanding personal identity information. Let's talk a little bit about what personal identity can help us do. It helps us drive a better understanding of the richness of the composition of our beautiful workforce. And really, it normalizes the concept of diversity. Provide the ability to achieve even greater transparency through reporting and analysis. It offers deeper insight into the talent experience, the sentiment analysis of diverse cohorts. And most importantly, it empowers all our people to thrive as their exceptional selves and reach their full potential. For the last couple of years, our goal has been to supplement regulatory reporting. And it is true, all of us are very, very aligned to regulatory reporting, but embark on a forward-looking journey around identity. What I love about this work that we've embarked on is that it is professional-led. It is the voices of our people. But we've also married that with what experts have to say in the identity space to create categories that both meet regulatory reporting requirements, but also reflect the lived experiences of our professionals. First, in 2020, we launched our self-identification, we call it Self-ID 1.0, to provide our people with enhanced race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation options. With the rich data we received from Self-ID 1.0 and our existing self-identification data before that, Deloitte produced, and this is publicly available for all of you to check out, our inaugural Deloitte Transparency Report. Amy, I would love for you to talk a little bit about that journey.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So our DEI transparency report took a critical look at our current state in terms of quantitative and qualitative data. You can look at it and see that it shares talent and demographic data to help us understand the work we need to do to further enhance the representation of our workforce and cultivate a more rewarding talent experience for all of our professionals. The report has goals that we've committed to that are specific to race, ethnicity, and gender. And I think what you'll find is Deloitte, like many organizations, has work to do to activate equity and build a workforce that mirrors the rich diversity of our communities. We wanted to be transparent about our original starting point so that we could hold ourselves accountable to doing better as we progress. One enhancement that we were able to achieve because of Self-ID 1.0, as Kavitha mentions, is that we were able to disaggregate race and ethnicity within our transparency report. KP mentioned that, of course, we meet the requirements of our regulatory reporting, but we see that as something different than understanding the diversity of our own workforce. If you think about the social concepts of race and the social concept of ethnicity, they're two different things. And essentially what we had been doing through our reporting was asking people to choose one or the other. So if you were a professional that identified as Afro-Latina, for example, we would be communicating with you potentially, if you consented to that, based on your Latina identity, but not based on the part of you that identifies as Black or African American. And we felt that that was important to recognize that there is intersectionality there and that we needed to learn more about that intersectionality throughout our workforce. We also took a look at our racial categories, and for Asian, for example, wanted to really embrace the idea that the experience of an Asian professional is not monolithic. We provided geographic distinctions so that we could do a deep dive on East Asian professionals and their talent experience and South Asian or Southeast Asian professionals and their experience. Over the past year, since we launched the transparency report, we've continued to engage with our professionals, and that's been one of the best things about it. And KP, why don't you talk a little bit about what we've heard?
Yeah, thank you, Amy. The release of our transparency report definitely provided us the most in-depth look into our talent experience of our professionals. I think, we are a company that's very proud of our legacy in the DEI space. And we realize that while we've made great strides, the data tells us that we absolutely have more work to do as it relates to the talent experiences and representation for cohorts of professionals. We heard a lot of insightful feedback from our people. So let me talk a little bit about a few things we took away. Be intentional, right? Capturing the data is one thing, but sharing the data in an objective, straightforward manner was very, very important and critical. We engaged with a number of cohorts during the writing and review process to ensure that language content was clear, direct, and it was empathetic to the employee experience. Recognize that people appreciate being valued and seen. At the most basic level, our professionals are glad to have some data representing their experience. In some cases, the data even did some myth busting, disrupting organizational narratives that are not always supported by data. I'll give you an example of this. We had to myth bust that our women were leaving at rates higher than our men, when in reality, in a year like COVID, we had the opposite, and that was supported by our data. With self-identification data available for public review, we saw an increased number of professionals reaching out about the options for self-ID and how their lived experiences didn't align with the options available to them, which is why this is truly an identity transformation journey. We can't stop with 1.0, we can't stop with 2.0. We will continue to learn and apply that as we go through this journey of identity transformation. Equipped with this feedback and engagement data from last year, we're now continuing our journey around identity, again, refining our process. Amy will talk to you next about Self-ID 2.0 and the enhancements we made there. Amy, on to you.
Yeah. So again, the transparency report made identity real for our professionals in terms of data and how we were looking at the data. Obviously, identity is about much more than data. We know that. And we do focus on inclusion and belonging. But what we wanted to address was this idea that we still had professionals saying that they didn't see themselves in the options that we were presenting. KP mentioned we had feedback from our Middle Eastern, North African, and Near Eastern professionals. If you look at the way race is defined in our regulatory reporting, a person who identifies as Middle Eastern is asked to identify as white. And the feedback that we heard from our professionals was that that doesn't match with their lived experience. So that started us on this journey with, all right, we've already sort of freed ourselves from a constraint of having to marry the concept of identity with regulatory reporting. So we flipped that orthodoxy. And what we wanted to do was set out to figure out what else is out there. What else do we need to be including? So we started with our professionals. The first thing we did was listen, very important in DEI work. And we received some feedback on a couple of different dimensions. We then went out and spoke with luminaries outside of our firm, people who are experts in the concept of identity. And we also worked with our own risk and legal experts, both inside and outside of the firm, because again, even though we were sort of freeing ourselves from this concept of identity and regulatory reporting having to be aligned, we wanted to make sure that we weren't breaking anything or introducing any risk. What we learned is that the concept of identity is very complex and there's no single right answer. And so that's why the value of being professional-led is so important. It's not valuable to us to provide a list of 500 ethnicities or 500 countries where people could claim their national origin, because we may or may not have people that identify each of those ways. So we want to make it enough so that people see themselves, but that also so that the data is useful and can feed the strategy and the different things that we're doing within the firm. The other thing is that we learned how personal this is and how much of a trust journey getting people to disclose information about their identity is, and really took it on as a cultural change initiative. We talked about one of the drivers for self-ID being data quality, but we really tried to reinforce that we don't necessarily, we're not asking people to disclose if they're not comfortable with it. There's options for people to say that they prefer not to share it. We're asking people to be intentional and thinking about what they do or do not share with the firm. Be intentional about thinking how you show up every day and experience the Deloitte. So, of course, the decision people ultimately decide or not to share their identity with us is personal. It's voluntary. There's no sort of compliance aspect to this. We've also made that very clear. But what we've seen is that we've had the majority of our professionals turn up and turn out and self-identify. I'll turn it back over to you, KP, to close up.
Thank you, Amy. You said so many amazing things in that last segment there. But for me, the identity transformation journey is synonymous with the trust journey. People have to be comfortable and trust in sharing this because it is personal. It is about their lived experience, but helping them see how we will use that data, how it benefits them and the larger organization and society is a journey of education that we've been on. I will end by saying, encourage all of you to challenge and have the curiosity to really grow in the space of identity transformation, but also have the courage to unlearn the frames or the context you might have been raised with. This topic is complex. It is fun, and it is all about our beautiful society. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you tuning in and listening in. Hope you have a great day.